I'm not here talking to you about my book. I'm at my shop in Los Angeles making things out of wood. You may or may not know this. And people seem to be enthralled by that information. And my friend Jimmy lives on the Lower East Side. He's got a shop there. And if you go to jimmydiresta.com, you'll see that he's making shit all the time. He's not prancing about on some television program in makeup and blown, dried moose. He's just making shit. And so if you like the stuff I make, he makes things 10 times faster and better. jimmydiresta.com. You're all right. Jimmy, I have a copy of the book for you. All right, book shit. Rainbow Song, Ryan 74. I put some thought into this. This would be a good point to mention. Built and distributed by Dutton Books, an imprint of Penguin Random House, and they have been pretty goddamn excellent to me. I have an editor there named Jill Schwartzman, and I basically just shat out a great deal of material to what you'll find in here. So I'm very grateful to her, and if you like the book, it's her fault. So thank you to Jill and Dutton Books. Now, without further ado, let's hear some of this bullshit between the covers of this book. I should mention, there's a section where I talk about some stories from my youth, and I spent a lot of my youth with my cousin Ryan on our family's farm. We were the same age, so we kind of grew up like brothers, screwing around, getting in trouble together. And in the mid-'80s, when we were teenagers, breakdance happened. There wasn't a lot to do out on the farm. So Ryan and I were pretty into it. We were inseparable, and so let's hear a little bit about that. Throughout the years, Ryan and I, this is my book, reading voice. The years, Ryan and I especially enjoyed each other's company, and walking beans was a way to spend all day together. Walking beans is walking through fields, taking up weeds. It's commonly done on farms in the Midwest. We'd screw around just enough to have a blast, but just little enough to still do a good job in the bean field. Ryan and I really benefited from being the young men in our farming circle. We were attempting to come across as good-looking teenagers, which means we thought we looked awesome, but we really looked a bit like teenagers trying too hard, especially me. Ryan was always the more modest and decent of the two of us, and now he's a paramedic, and I'm full of shit for a living. Amazing. In the summer, we would sell sweet corn at a stand near the main intersection in town. We'd put sun in our hair. Do they still have sun in? And listen to music. Before George Michael was a solo act, he had a band called Wham UK. A personal favorite. Bad boys stick together. We put sun in our hair and listen to music and hope that girls would come by to buy a dozen ears for their family dinner. You can bet your ass we gave them a baker's dozen. It was a dream life. A couple of times during the harvest season, also the homecoming season, lucky for us, the nearby gas station. It goes without saying, we were happy as pigs in shit. Eventually, as we grew into our teen years, Ryan and I started running the Walking Beans crew. We became autonomous because we had the system down. Sometimes it was just the two of us in the field, sometimes we had a crew of 6, but generally we spent a lot of time by ourselves out in the cornfield and the bean field. It was 1984 or 85, and breakdancing was becoming a huge sensation all over the country. Unfortunately, we really had a hard time finding appropriate music in Minooka, Illinois. I'll remind you this is decades before the internet, let alone the iPod, but we were aware of the whole movement because of the breakdancing movies we could rent at the video store. We just couldn't find the music for sale. Our favorites were Grandmaster Flash, Run DMC, please hold your applause until the end of this list, Melly Mel, Nucleus, and songs like Rapper's Delight and Jam On It. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Chili B, and I'm a surefire, full-blooded, bona fide, high fucking jam on production you see. If you want the best to put me to the test, and I'm sure you'll soon agree that I got no cause, because I'm down by law when it comes to rocking, it's easy to etc. Superman had come to town to see who he could rock. He blew away every crew he faced until he reached our block. His speakers were 3 stories high, his woofers made of steel. But when we turned our power on, he said, hot reel to reel. We knew that in the cities this exciting new culture was happening, but we were just too far removed to even begin to know how to get to where it was. We listened to these late-night radio shows out of Chicago on which they'd play breakdancing music, and we'd record tracks off the radio onto what were quickly rendered our most prized cassettes. Anybody in here ever touched a cassette tape? Cool. Ryan and I had a 2-man breakdance team that would practice in his basement in front of a mirror on the requisite large sheet of cardboard. We'd take our fly stylings to the Shanahan skating rink on weekends and take part in competitions. We had breakdancing names. I was Tick-Tock and he was Flip-Flop. Tick-Tock was named because of my propensity for popping and locking. And Flip-Flop did flips and the hard moves on the floor like the helicopter and whatnot. We dabbled with a cool team name like the Manuka Crew, but I don't think we ever had a name that stuck. For some strange reason, we could never fully reconcile our farm flavor with the hard scrabble aesthetic of inner city street dancing. Out in the fields all day long, we would write raps about ourselves, touting our prowess and our manhood. How our dope-ass moves would attract the ladies like bees to honey. In hindsight, it was really funny, I'm told, but it was sincerely a big part of our coming of age. We carried ourselves at school like some kind of badass street thugs, like we knew the ways of subway trains and the back alleys of Harlem. It was a quick phase though, it came and went like our parachute pants. We each had 1 pair of said pants from Sears or Chess King, perhaps, and we'd accessorize like Michael Jackson and Adam Ant. Of course, we inexplicably drew the line before donning the scarves and bracelets of Boy George and George Michael because their effeminacy was somehow more girly than Michael Jackson's or Adam Ant's. There were other dudes wearing bangles, but they were okay because they were new wave, which again, could be tough to pull off. A Flock of Seagulls, Duran Duran, Kaja Gugu. Lots of people dug them, but I never did hear the Smiths, at least not at the time. Before I wander too far afield, I had better get back to my element, the breakdance. Our parents were really very generous about it. We would show them our moves and routines. They understood that even though they didn't appreciate the breakdancing movement, we were exhibiting prowess. Ryan's mom and dad, Dan and Dee, had undertaken an earlier disco phase after all. Many years later, in 2006, I did a show on Comedy Central called American Body Shop, and this guy named Pete Holney, who's a great underappreciated comedy actor of our day, and I had both brooked a very similar breakdance experience in the 80s. And late in the shooting of our series, we realized it. I was astonished and said, wait, hold the phone. You break? So we convinced the team to write an episode in which we have a rather middle-aged breakdance competition. We were in our mid-30s and quickly learned that this dancing style was very much indeed a young man's game. I could still pop and lock, but I could no longer get on the floor and execute the spinning moves. I may have lost a step, but I also discovered that one can never truly lose the funk. Did you end up getting the 21 year? One second. Since I have begun dabbling in the world of writing, as it were, I've been paying more attention to the things that other people write, instead of just enjoying them blindly. I sort of break them down and think, oh, somebody wrote this, this is somebody's agenda. I began thinking that way. It's a bummer because it tends to ruin a lot of things for you. You can hear really ham-handed comedy writing, especially on television and also in popular music. Which brings to mind a nauseating young lady who had a hit song some years ago. She literally exploded onto the pop country Christian scene, which we all adore, with her infuriating hit song, Jesus Take the Wheel. I find that song very upsetting. I think that Carrie Underwood should be absolutely mortified for the message of her song. She won awards for this piece of garbage. Jesus Take the Wheel. Here's my problem with the song. If you're not familiar, it's about a young lady who's driving to Cincinnati to spend Christmas with her mom and dad. She's got her baby in the back seat. She's got a lot on her mind. Things are not going great for our protagonist. And she's not paying attention when her car hits a sheet of glassy ice and begins to skid. Here's where Carrie runs afoul of me. Her advice to the listener is to throw your hands up in the air and ask Jesus to take the wheel. Because she can't do it on her own. You better fucking do it on your own. Your child is in the vehicle. Why has no one called her out on this? I have nothing to say against prayer. I think prayer and faith are two very solid things to invest in. Maybe try praying while you turn into the fucking skid. So I wrote my own version of this song. I find it a little more searing and soulful, so maybe we should all bow our heads for this one. I was hauling ass away from that church in Cincinnati when lo, I saw a fellow with his thumb out for a hitch. I rolled the dice and picked him up because I was feeling chatty, and there sat the Prince of Peace himself, riding bitch. He said, my brother, the time is nigh for you and me to get high. He fired up a J and said, it's time to fly. He got so much smoke, it would have made Galactus, eater of planets, choke. And then I saw Jesus take the wheel. You're the Lord on high, and you just seem like an awesome guy. He said, no, I call it burning bush. We were smoking burning bush. He said, I'm the Messiah, my brother, and I can barely cope with the flock in church praying out their money for hope. I'd like to slap the Pope, wash his pie hole out with soap, hang his lying ass from the belfry rope. Cause you don't need to pay no preacher if you wanna call me teacher. All you need is a stanky bag of dope. I hit this pole. I saw Jesus give the finger to the highway patrol. In a nutshell, he said, I'm no longer in the wine and bread that church folk think is their salvation. No, instead I bleed in every tasty bud of weed. It's my new form of transubstantiation. Buddy, here's my wallet. Run in that store and fetch me a whatchamacallit. Jesus, take the weed. I'll smoke it the whole day through. And I'll do it in remembrance. Footprints on the sand. And told me to come to Barnes & Noble tonight and sing you this song. Jesus took the lead. Then Jesus cleaned the screen. Thank you. Here tonight. One day she will attend my show. And she will come on stage for a reckoning. More book jazz. Ryan 74, Jesus Wheel, Stash. 151, y'all. This is a section called The Mustache Makes the Magic. And to the young gentleman who said to me as I returned from the bathroom moments before the show started, wow, real mustache and all. Go fuck yourself. What did you think, son? First of all, Teddy Roosevelt. Pow! How's that for a punch in the nuts? Or a mustache? As a mere sprout, mustaches always represented simply manhood to me, as well as heroes, cowboys, and my uncles Don and Dan, who were already my idols and had mustaches that were flinty, bristly, completely virile, and tough as nails. When I was just a little pisser, I knew that I would only truly become a man upon the day that I could grow a mustache. I associated the notion of those noble whiskers mostly with my uncles because they owned tractors, wore vice grip pliers on their belts, and were out in the weather harvesting their incomes by way of cultivating crops in the soil. Badass. They were brave, admirable souls to me. They still are, much like Burt Reynolds and Tom Selleck at the time. A mustache carries with it a little bit of daring do. You're the kind of guy who will come barreling up, doing a power slide in your pickup, and then give a girl a wink. You know your knots. You know what to do with beef tallow. Are you fucking kidding me? I want to learn. Freddie Mercury was also a major idol of mine, and he had a badass mustache to perfectly complement his whole leather guy Tom of Finland thing. When I eventually learned that he was gay, I didn't think less of him. I just thought that gay people must be pretty kick-ass then if he was one of them. Before I ever knew anything about sexuality, I just thought he was a rough / pretty looking dude who could sing his face off. And once I began to learn about the varying sexual orientations of we humans, then I thought he was a rough / pretty looking dude who could sing his face off. I recently had the extreme pleasure of showing my friend, Chris Pratt, the seminal 1986 film Highlander, which is required viewing for young men anyway, and I was blown away yet again by the amazing Queen songs that make up the film's soundtrack. Freddie Mercury brought manhood to the stage like few before him, and damned fewer since. A mustache tells folks that you're willing to take the bull by the horns. You have a certain amount of gravel in your craw, like many of Sean Connery's characters. Name me one actor since Connery to bring to life such a swaggering sense of manliness, with or without whiskers, but especially with. Can't do it? Neither can I. But by sporting a mustache, I can bring a hint of that stag-like flavor to my own savory life. Later on, Sam Elliott took an awfully fine swing at that feeling with his incredibly aesthetic lip hedge in The Big Lebowski. Portraying the stranger in that film, a man with such life experience, including enough notches on his belt to be able to give advice to the dude, for Pete's sake, required a brambly thicket of absolute chaparral between his nose, and Sam brought that shit hard. I also emulated a lot of sports figures in the 80s. For example, Goose Gossage, ladies and gentlemen. Earlier mustached film heroes, Errol Flynn and really anybody playing Zorro, gentlemanly pursuit of sword fighting with the mustache. Wyatt Earp brought his hirsute stash to the gunfight at the OK Corral and was justifiably pissed that he was mainly remembered for only that one heroic day, when in truth his whiskers saw him through careers as city policeman, county sheriff, teamster, buffalo hunter, bouncer, saloon keeper, gambler, brothel owner, pimp. What's the difference between a brothel owner and a pimp? Book 2. Minor and boxing referee. Now that was a mustache. In the same vein, Mark Twain had the kind of lip bracken to land him on the list of men I've always idolized. His sense of humor always sounded to me like if someone real smart came from my neck of the woods and he said what he meant. I shouldn't be surprised if in my later years I try to emulate his technique even more than I already do, writing stories about mischief while riding the nation's rivers astride a steamboat. In general, depending on your style, your mustache can read as heroic and lend a granite quality to your visage, or if you go in a slightly different direction, your mustache can connote criminality in a character. I think it's funny that when I'm playing a sheriff, I think I'm gonna need a kick-ass mustache. But if I'm playing a bank robber or cattle rustler or Irish thug, I think, oh, I had better grow a kick-ass mustache. The important thing is to start with the mustache. Everything else can be adjusted around it, forcing your truth to trumpet beneath it. Be that truth good or bad, strong or weak, sexy or abhorrent. On the heroic side, astronauts rock a mustache if they know what they're about. The straight dope is this. If we're true to our natures, then we grow a robust beard. That is what was intended by the order of things. Society, however, has put a spin on us, making us clean-shaven in our countenance, making that the social norm, which from my nature's point of view is bullshit. But then so are air conditioning and saran wrap and Captain Crunch and a bunch of other cool shit that allows us to rise above nature at times. A mustache is a socialized way to say, okay, look, I'll let you see most of my face, since that's what we're all doing right now. But if you will kindly direct your gaze to this thorn bush above my mouth, you will be reminded that I am a fucking animal. And I'm ready to reproduce or rip your throat out if called upon, because I come from nature. In this way, the mustache can be considered a relief valve of sorts, for the buildup of animal preening that most people completely repress. That's what makes a man with a good stash so cool, calm, and collected. It's funny to me that people ask me for tips on growing a mustache. I often reply, I honestly don't know. I was born with this mustache. I just cut it periodically so it doesn't go down my throat when I'm enjoying my soup. My whiskers grow, most do, without any provocation from me whatsoever. I have about as much advice on mustache growing as I do on growing fingernails or hemorrhoids. But I'll tell you this much, my life is always more delicious when I have whiskers on my face, but that might just be because bacon crumbs and scotch, rendering. In response to the query, how do you grow that robust mustache for Ron Swanson, I can walk you through the steps. Number 1, I don't shave my lip area. Number 2, after 2 weeks, I have a passable mustache in the form of long, luxurious stubble. Number 3, I continue to eschew the razor. Number 4, after 3 to 4 weeks, my whiskers have developed to the point where I can play a sheriff who's so tough that he eats nails, but not yet Swanson. Number 5, I refuse to shave. And number 6, after 5 weeks, the whiskers growing from just beneath my nostrils have extended down wire-like to reach my top lip, a distance of 1 full imperial inch. Now, and only now, may I don the pleated dockers and thick long-sleeved knits of Pawnee's Director of Parks and Recreation with confidence and authority. I'm going to wrap up tonight's performance with one more song, and then we're going to have a little Q&A action. Stupid questions will be ridiculed. Siddhartha says, life is like a river. The thought of watching it pass me by causes me to shiver. Siddhartha, second floor. I grab life by the balls, I got some advice to deliver. Get off your caboose, paddle your own canoe. Take the road less traveled, says Robert Frost. Third floor poetry. Keep the stone rolling so it don't accumulate no moss. Leave the faint of heart sucking on your exhaust. Live a little life, paddle your own canoe. Don't while it away, masturbating in the ditches. Put your tackle away and hitch up your britches. Then provision your boat with several pulled pork sandwiches. Indulge in savory meat stuffs, paddle your own canoe. Young Teddy Roosevelt was a weak little puss, but he exercised and became quite an ornery cuss, till he could whoop a bear and also Cuba without a fuss. By God, number 26 paddled his own canoe. You like to smoke some reefer and you like to dance. The preacher tells you to keep your pecker in your pants, but the preacher'd be kissing your nephew, giving half the chance. You should spend your Sundays paddling your own canoe. I might have mentioned Jesus Christ himself got high in my van. I
told him I wouldn't go to church, and he shook my hand. He said, my son, just let me run inside and use the can. Get some Doritos and paddle your sweet canoe. What would Jesus do? Paddle my goddamn canoe. Thank you.